I don't know why you came here today, what motivated you to be in this lecture theatre, but the reason I am here is because around 3 years ago, I was in a local supermarket in Bangsar where I live, and I saw some bananas. They were shiny yellow bananas. And I was talking to the store manager from the supermarket, and I saw these bananas being put into a supermarket trolley and just wheeled away. So I said to him, "What's happening with those bananas?" And he said to me, "Well, there's newer, shinier bananas coming in, so they're basically for the dustbin." And I was quite shocked. I said, "Oh, but they're lovely, yellow, shiny bananas. What will happen to them? Can the staff take them home?" And he said, "No way that's possible." He said, "What happens is even sometimes they can be cut up and sliced up to make sure they don't go home with somebody." And I was truly appalled. I mean, I can understand that you don't always want staff to take products home because obviously people can end up mishandling and doing things deliberately. But there's absolutely no excuse for throwing those bananas away because there's so many people in Malaysia and around the world that need those sorts of things. So that's when I thought something has to change here. So I'd like to actually stop now because for me, in terms of sustainability and food waste, I actually think the biggest problem out of everything is us. It's our lack of knowledge and our lack of connectivity with food and the food industry world. So I'm going to ask everybody to stand up very quickly because we don't have much time. And I'm going to ask you 4 questions, okay? And it's very simple. If you think the answer is A, I want you to stick up your left hand. If you think the answer is B, I want you to put up your right hand. And if you think the answer is C, put up both hands. If you get the answer right, hooray, congratulations, keep standing. If you get it wrong, I'd like you to quickly sit down. So, question 1. There are 800 million people in the world, somewhere between hunger and starvation, death, obviously. Surplus food, we call it lost food, is thrown away every day. If we could use this food to feed these people, how many of these people could we feed? If you think the answer is about half of them, put up your left hand. If you think we could feed all the hungry people in the whole world, put up your right hand. Or if you think we could feed all of them times 4, stick up both hands. So I want to do high in the air. Okay. And you can stay standing if you said C. Both hands in the air. Everyone else, left hand, right hand, sit down, please. Sit down, you got it wrong. Okay, well done, those who got it right. Next question is, how often, not a human being, but just a child, how often does a child die from hunger somewhere in the world? We're not talking about communicable diseases like malaria or other things, but just purely of hunger. If you think a child is dying every 5 seconds, put up your left hand. If you think the child is dying every minute, put up your right hand. And if you think a child is dying every single hour of every single day, put up both hands. Okay, you can stay standing if you sadly said every 5 seconds. Now, some people say it's 3, some people say it's 5 seconds, some people say it's 7 seconds. But whatever it is, it's a lot, it's too many. Next question. I don't know who likes boiled eggs. I love boiled eggs. So I like this question. So how long do you think a boiled egg can be safely eaten, i.e. how long can it last in the fridge and still be good to eat? If you think it's 1 day, put up your left hand. If you think it's 3 days, put up your right hand. And if you think it's an entire week, put up both hands. I want the high in the air, and you can stay standing if you said a whole week. Sit down, everyone else. Okay, this is the last question, I think. Okay, the use-by date in food is very important. It's usually meat, seafood, dairy products that you really have to be careful of because you can get sick. However, the best before date is actually just an indication of the quality of the product and when it begins to deteriorate. So often, it might sometimes taste a tiny bit different, but it doesn't really matter in terms of your health. So which of the following products does not need a best before date? If you think it's solid sugar, left hand. If you think it's vinegar, put up your right hand. Or if you think it's cooking oil, put up both hands. So high in the air. Okay, a few people have got this wrong. You've got it right. You can stay standing if you said vinegar. Answer B. Everyone else sit down. Now, if you look around the theatre, you'll see that actually there's not that many of us standing up, really. And if I put another couple of questions, I'm sure I could get a few more of you down. And this is just an illustration of all of us. All of us really don't know about food anymore. Maybe 50 years ago or 100 years ago, but nowadays we're all buying fast food and we just forget what food is all about. So, I mean, for me it's very funny because one of the things I love most about living in Malaysia is the love of food, how people connect with food, they celebrate with food. For me, coming from England originally, you know, the English talk about the weather constantly, whereas in Malaysia it's food. It's like your national sport. And yet, when you look at this today, or just food waste in general, isn't it amazing how little we know about something we love? So I think, you know, when I think about the arguments I hear about where's the best nasi lemak from, or the best laksa, or whether rendang should be crispy or not. It really is such a contradiction, don't you think? So anyway, I'm going to tell you more about my journey. I actually started, my eyes were open to the secret world, as I call it, of food waste, around about 20 years ago, just over 20 years ago. I was waitressing in a restaurant called Ferryman's in Cape Town. And like most restaurants, many restaurants, we were throwing away bins of great food every single day. And we had kitchen staff who were from the townships, who didn't have very much money, on a very basic wage. And they were bussed in, and it was just incredible because at the end of the day, there was so much glorious, beautiful food. We had prime steaks, we had pristine salads, we had perfect portions of puddings. But what happened to them? Splat into the landfill they would go. It was very eye-opening. And of course, again, the staff said, cannot give to the employers said, cannot give to the staff. So all this is going to landfill and there's hungry people that are not able to receive it. So I eventually returned to the UK after living in Africa. And funnily enough, I have two friends that were working in food banks. One of them, Robin, I used to work at the BBC with, he took me to the Oxford Food Bank. And I vividly remember going in and just seeing the vast expanse of food everywhere. It was shocking, I have to say. And I looked around and asked, how on earth can you get given all this food? Why are the supermarkets giving all this to you? And he said, it's because it's cheaper for them to give it to me than it is for them to dispose of it. And I was like, oh wow, okay. And then I sort of have another good friend called Lindsay, who works at FareShare, which is one of the bigger food banks in the UK. And Lindsay used to actually live in Borneo himself, so he's got a very strong connection with Malaysia. And I think partly because of this, he's been absolutely instrumental in helping us set up the Lost Food Project here in Malaysia. So this is a tiny portion of their warehouse. It's aisles and aisles and aisles, and it's got rooms and rooms of fridges and freezers. And as I say, there's 21 different depots in the UK alone. And this isn't even the biggest food bank, you know, there's 2,000 other food banks in the UK. And millions of people are using these food banks every single day. And it's not just the UK, it's every single country in Europe, Spain, Italy, Germany, France. You look at North America, everywhere has all these food banks. So hopefully we'll start this here in Malaysia too, because there's only a couple really that are going. And yet there's so much food here. Why is that? because in this region of the world, it's so cheap relatively for land and labour, and so many of the big multinational companies are producing food here and then disposing of it. And for me, it's such an irony, because in this region of the world, countries like Indonesia and Philippines, Cambodia, etc., there's so many people that could benefit from this food that's being thrown away. So I'm going to now show you some reasons why food is thrown away. And please don't get offended, because I can tell you this happens every day. Look at this. All this fruit here, it's been collected by us. What's wrong with it? Well, you can see for yourself. There's ugly vegetables. Ugly, just throw it away. Because this is happening by the truckloads. You know, so don't get offended by a little table. No one needs this, do they? You know, it's. I like these bits. Strawberries? Anyone like strawberries? Okay. So you can see the reasons. You know, ugly vegetables, the expiry dates. You know, the expiry date can be a few weeks or a few months away, but shops don't like to store things that only have 6 months. Factories cancel orders, but then they still have to produce them, so that goes straight in the bin. If the labelling is wrong, maybe a halal sticker is slightly the wrong shape. Import paperwork. I could spend hours talking to you about the reasons, but you get the general picture. The ultimate thing is it's wrong. So, I'd like to introduce our truck. This is one of the 2 trucks the Lost Food Project has. It's a 5-ton truck, and we take all our food in this truck. And I'd like to just tell you more about the conveyor belt of waste that's continuing to happen, and all the costs that, you know, companies are spending on throwing this food, because it's a lot of money, because 30% of all food in the world is thrown away. But we absorb the costs. The consumer, you and I, are paying for all this food to be thrown away. And this cycle does not stop spinning. In Malaysia alone, 3,000 tonnes of food every single day is thrown away. That's up to around 10 million meals. And if you look at our truck, our lovely truck, when we fill it up, every time we fill it up, 17,000 meals almost of food. And this one truck of ours, if you can transfer that to Malaysia, that's 600 trucks, 5-ton trucks, big trucks you see on the road, every single day. If you like maths, if you break that down, that's 25 trucks a day. That equates to 8,000 meals every single minute are being thrown away here in Malaysia. Okay? 8,000 meals, and that's a conservative estimate. This isn't including the food that is at the back of our fridge or we're throwing away because we don't finish our meals in restaurants or at home. It's huge, it's massive, it's just incredible. So, and it doesn't need to happen, that's the key thing here. You know, 32,000 meals every minute we're throwing away. There's a lot of people that need that food. So, there's a very, very real need for an alternative. I hope we can all agree with that. And this is what an alternative is. This is our warehouse. This is some of the food that we're collecting and some of the children that we're feeding. And you can see how lovely the reds and the greens are. And this is normally, like this, in the bin. And it's just the tip of the iceberg. And I'm sure you all know, you don't have to look very far in all our lives to find food waste. This here is your university canteen. I hope you recognise, hope that's none of your food here. But this does not need to happen, because there is a very neat and local solution. Should we be feeding these people, or should we be feeding this? You know, that is the reality. It's not very hard to work out, I don't think. But how to change this? The way it needs to change here now in Malaysia is volunteers like us, because government and industry cannot do this on their own. They need somebody to lead them, to take them there. And we need to show them what the benefits can be for them and what the benefits are for society. And I'd like to use myself as an example of how random ideas or movements can happen. Because my journey, I never wanted to be a food champion at all. In fact, I wanted to do something very different. I wanted to work with a superhero. Yep. I wanted to work as a journalist. I did work at BBC News for a long time, and it was great. Sadly, like a lot of women, I had to stop because I had a family and I had to follow my husband. But luckily for me, I came to Malaysia in 2014, and I worked with volunteers. I worked with refugees, and I got to see the desperate need many had for food. And I also got to see myself the impact food waste has on the environment. All the deforestation is we're taking away forests, planting food that we just then throw away and don't even eat. And what I experienced for myself was the haze, having to wear a face mask, my kids not going to school, having to tape up windows because all the haze was coming over from Sumatra or Indonesia or wherever else in the world. But globally, we're making food production happen. It's not one country's problem, it's all of our problem. And I'd say, can one person actually make a difference? We obviously can't all be Steve Jobs, or Mark Zuckerberg, or Anthony Tan at Grabcar. However, we can all make a difference. We can all be agents of change. Whether it be sending someone into space, or whether it's just taking a bag to a supermarket to cut down on plastic. Because at the end of the day, it's only ever going to be one grain of rice that tips the scales. So with this in mind, I started the Lost Food Project. Again, it's more action. We're about 100 volunteers. We're based in KL, hopefully expanding across the whole of Malaysia very soon. We take lots of food from different supermarkets and manufacturers and wholesalers. And in just over 20 months, we gave out 1 million meals. And that's growing much more because we're taking on lots more partnerships with multinationals. And you know, the amount of money we're saving the government and society here on landfill and incineration is billions. And for me, the best thing of all is that the food that goes off first is the food that we need most, which is one's high in protein, it's healthy, it's fresh vegetables, fresh fruits. And this is what benefits our charity recipients the most. It's easy to recruit people to do this because feeding is a human instinct. And you know, above all else, I think the reason the Food Project works so well is because we all want a just society. You know, but the trouble is that how do you get fair redistribution of wealth in society? It's very hard, isn't it? And there's lots of reasons for it, but one of the reasons is we don't throw away money, do we? However, with food, we do. You know, we're throwing away food every minute of every day. So food redistribution could be a reality if we make it a reality. So now you all know the secret and the environmental impact and damage this makes. I'd like you to understand what an indictment is on all of us. Water, bottles of water we're throwing away, toothbrushes, shampoos, everything, it's all going in landfill, causing a big problem for us. So what can we do? What can you do? This is the start of the Lost Food Project's journey here in Malaysia. And I hope this is the beginning of your journey too. We think we shouldn't accept what's happening, and I hope you agree too. You can start doing things in your communities. You can make sure you store food properly, you cook food properly, you freeze food properly. But the one thing you must do, the one thing you take from this room today is you must do something. You cannot do nothing. Because if you do, you are also part of the problem. Thank you.